Hello and welcome to the second part of my top 50 favourite films of all time. I hope you enjoyed the first part where I went from number 50 to number 41, and in this part I'm going to be going from number 40 to number 31. So like I said in the last video, these are my favourite films, not necessarily the best films of all time, but my favourite ones. So I'd love to hear what your favourite films are in the comments below. So let's get straight onto it. I'll try to make this one not as long as the last one. At number 40, we are starting with my favourite Carry-On film, Carrion Abroad. Now, it was a slight toss-up between Carry-On Abroad and Carry-On Camping. These films I find so much fun, and yes, they're quite dated, and yes, some of the humour hasn't aged too well, but as long as you turn that part of your brain off and just enjoy them for what they are, which is an ensemble cast of great British comedians doing that very British seaside humour, seaside postcard humour, and Carry On Abroad is just hilarious from beginning to end. So definitely one to check out. That is my number 40. At number 39 is a bit of a cheat because I'm going to put three films together, and it is the Lord of the Rings franchise. I'd probably go for The Two Towers as my favourite of the three, but all three are just absolutely breathtaking. The scenery in New Zealand, the natural scenery there, plus the CGI, plus the effects by Weta Workshop, the whole thing is just absolutely spellbinding, and very, very long, but definitely worth watching, and surprised me a lot because I was a fan of Peter Jackson's, going to sound very hipster now. I was a fan of Peter Jackson in the early days, before, when he used to do sort of comedy horror films like Brain Dead and Bad Taste and Meet the Feebles and that kind of thing. But Lord of the Rings, so when I heard that he was doing Lord of the Rings, I did think, wow, is he really the person to do it? But boy was he. He did an incredible labour of love, and it still stands the test of time as an incredible work. Okay, so that is number 39. At 38, talking of beautiful films, The Third Man, which is another film that I love because of the natural scenery. Although it's not beautiful scenery, it's actually filmed in Vienna post World War II, so it's very derelict. The backdrops are just the ruins of the city after the Blitz, really. And it's black and white, which I love. It's, really works, the shadowy cinematography, brilliant acting, very mysterious performance from Orson Welles. Trevor Horn is in there is it Trevor Horn? Or Trevor Jones? One of them's in Brief Encounter, one of them's in Buggles. Anyway, yeah, great film, great mystery, great drama. Great action, amazing scenery. Okay, next one is, I think, it's the first of the Hitchcock films. There's a few Hitchcock films, as you can imagine, with me being such a big fan, in this top 50, but at number 37 we have North by Northwest, which I often describe as the best Bond film that never was. It's like a Bond film, but it involves a mistaken identity, really. It's a guy played by Cary Grant, in brilliantly acerbic, witty best, trying to clear his name, really. He gets mistaken for a British agent who it turns out doesn't actually exist and has been created by the spies to kind of throw the enemies off the scent. And he gets more and more embroiled in this mystery as he goes along, and it's really an exciting film, brilliantly acted, great cinematography, as you'd expect from Hitchcock. Great suspense as well. So love that film. It's worth it if just for the great drunk driving acting from Cary Grant, which has to be seen to be believed. If nothing else, it's worth it for that. Now, at number 36 is one of those films that is very much in there because I love it and not necessarily for it being the best film ever. And it's One Trick Pony. I'm a gigantic Paul Simon fan, always have been. And it's a very flawed film in some regards. It's his first attempt at doing a bit of a Woody Allen. He acts in it, wrote it, he wrote the music for it, which is amazing, as you'd expect. But yeah, it's quite an honest, almost biographical film, all about this guy who is a bit of a one-hit wonder, which obviously Paul Simon wasn't, but it shows what could have happened to Paul Simon had he not have continued having hits and things like that. And it's all about a struggling musician on the road, which obviously as a musician myself really echoes a lot of things that I've been through myself. And yeah, it's not a bad film, you know. It's one of those that it's a comfort blanket film for me. It's one that I really enjoy watching when I'm a bit down or in need of a bit of a pick-me-up. It's a good film. Right, now we're on to 35. Another almost visually poetic film, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. It's set in not medieval, is it feudal China? I think that's the way you say it. And yeah, it's very fairy tale like. It incorporates a lot of kind of ancient Chinese mythology and spiritualism. But it's also got some really sort of kick-ass fight scenes as well, and it's quite dreamlike in a way. Yeah, and the visuals are stunning throughout, and it's a very great piece of work. Okay, next one is Manhattan, which I believe, no, it's the second Woody Allen film on the list. Manhattan, again, the music is incredible. It's all scored by George Gershwin songs. There's a very iconic opening scene with the music of Gershwin swelling as the backdrop of the landscape of New York City skyscrapers and the sun coming up, and it's just that first 5 minutes or so of the film is just iconic stuff, absolutely brilliant. The subject matter itself I find quite difficult, quite dated in a way, because the guy that Woody Allen plays is about 40 odd, and he's going out with a girl who's about 17 or 18, which doesn't sit very well with me, I have to say, when I'm watching it. It's done in a fairly tasteful way, but I don't know, there's something that doesn't quite sit right, especially with Woody Allen having been accused, nothing proved, but he's been accused by his ex-wife of various things, so it does make it an uncomfortable watch at times. But as you'd imagine with a Woody Allen film, the script is just so well written, the characters are all well played and very three-dimensional, and in particular his sort of verbal sparring with Carol Keaton is definitely up there with Annie Hall and other films where they appear together. So yeah, that one for me is at number 34, great film, Manhattan. At number 33, we have another gloriously silly one. It's by Mel Brooks this time, and it's Young Frankenstein. One of those films, a bit like Airplane, that was in the last... Oh no, it wasn't. Team America, sorry, was in the last one. One of those films that you can quote pretty much every line from. Peter Boyle is so funny, as is Gene Wilder and the rest of the cast. It's just a hilarious spoof of all those kind of old early Universal monster films like Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein and Dracula and all those. Definitely worth watching, and a very, very funny film indeed. The next one is Saturday Night, Sunday Morning. This is a Marlon Brando film. No, it's not. I'm getting it confused with On the Waterfront. I don't know why I put those two together. Anyway, I suppose they're both quite dark, black and white dramas. Saturday Night, Sunday Morning is what used to be referred to as a kitchen sink drama. It's set around a guy who works in a factory in the 60s, and about his life. He's a bit of a player. He gets into a lot of scrapes, and one of the things I love about this film is that my own dad grew up in working class Wolverhampton, from a council estate, and he was in the 60s. He often says that the kind of way that we look at the 60s with the flower power and the hippies and the Carnaby Street and all that is just one side of the 60s. And what I love about Saturday Night, Sunday Morning is that it represents that kind of that different kind of experience for a lot of people living in inner cities who were going to their factory jobs every day and working in and living in some pretty grim environments, and their sort of experience. It's very well written. Albert Finney is superb in it. Best film I've seen him in. Great acting from him, and again some really quotable lines. Definitely one to watch. And in 31, we're up to 31 already. Hopefully this has been a little bit of a shorter one to the last one. It is another of my favourite Christmas films, Elf. Now I still see Elf as quite a recent film, although it's not actually. It's getting quite old now, but it's a really refreshing bit of great comedy gold from Will Ferrell. It's got that right combination of heartfelt romance and hilarious comedy throughout, and it just makes the perfect Christmas film. It's one of those films that I could put on and the whole family enjoys it, which isn't very often that we can all watch a film and enjoy it, but Elf is definitely one of those. So there we are. That is the second part of my top 50 favourite films. We've gone from number 40 to number 31. I hope you've enjoyed that. Still got a lot more films to go, but I'd love to hear what your favourite films are, so leave them in the comments below. Like, share, and do all those sort of things, and I'll see you next time for number 30 to number 21. See you then.